we came across this detour driving from Jalalabad to Kabul after arriving in Afghanistan the previous day through the notoriously chaotic border crossing at Torkham. Our guide was Jabi, and our driver, Mr. Sangin, was like the road ninja. He would dive in and out of the traffic, go up on the side of the mountain, in through the ditch, whatever it took to get just that little bit further than the next guy. Our transportation through most of the trip was the standard issue white Toyota Corolla, which you find throughout Pakistan and Afghanistan. We found that most were purchased used from foreign countries and imported into Afghanistan. Going through this section, I found myself singing, "Clowns to the left, yeah, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you." There doesn't seem to be any weight restrictions, height restrictions, length restrictions, anything on these commercial trucks that we find in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. No problem. Watch the lines.
Let's go down.
Yep. Let's take pictures.
Let's go. You're not good people, you know. Come here, check. دوی هغه څه نه دي دغه خلکو نه دوی هغه دي دوی سیلانیان دي دوی راغلي په سیاحت باندې راغلي کرایه موټر دا خو هغه ورکوي دولت ورکوي که نه موټر.
What was supposed to be an 8-hour trip from Banyan, just outside of Kabul, to Mazar-i-Sharif turned into a 17-hour detour after the government closed the main highway for upgrades, which then sent us down this road. This was probably the worst section of the road, backed up for miles on each side. The funny thing was, is just before this scene, we had stopped. All the traffic had stopped. It was fairly heavy traffic, but it was still moving. And all the traffic had stopped, and it was prayer time, and everybody got out and did their prayers down by a nice creek. And then everybody jumped back in their cars, and the chaos started all over again. When Mr. Sangin saw an opening, he went for it. And we went around the cars that were waiting in front of us. Then we ran smack dab into cars coming up the hill. And then all the traffic came to a standstill. And I thought there was going to be a riot. There was yelling and screaming, and they came up to the window. And
بابا نباید این خیره با یک دو ناس نکشون خدا سیده کنی
There was only room for one car to pass through this section at a time, and of course there wasn't any traffic control. But instead of letting a line of cars coming from one direction, then a line of cars coming from another direction, it was every man for himself in this section. One car would come up, and then one car would jump out of their line and try to get in front of the queue, and it was just absolute chaos. Luckily, we had changed to a four-wheel drive van from our four-door white Corolla at this point in the trip and had no problem through this section. This bus isn't getting up there. On the road north to Mazar-i-Sharif, commercial traffic was allowed, but it was alternating days. Because it was such a bottleneck, they only allowed west one day and then east on the other day. So when you come out on the other side, you'd see long lines of trucks waiting for their turn the next day. The World Food Program trucks were caught in the closure as well, and their convoys had to wait till the next day to get through. We stayed in Mazar-i-Sharif for one day and then spent another 17 hours driving back the next day. Luckily, on the way back, we found a road that commercial traffic wasn't allowed on. It still took us 17 hours, but it was different sights than we saw on the way in. As chaotic as it was still a great trip.